Hello, and welcome to what's basically part two of this. Gosh, there's so much noise happening outside. What is essentially part two of the spooky season recommendations, movie edition. So I'm essentially just kind of gonna list some movies that I always think of at this time of year. They might not really be Halloween movies or have anything to do with the holiday themselves, but they just give that feeling for me personally, because I'm basic, I like haunted houses, those are my absolute favorite things. Supernatural horror is also probably my favorite, but anything supernatural for like Halloween, like that's my jam. So that's probably going to be a theme here, and also you're going to see another theme as in my previous video with the book suggestions. You're going to see some repeats with the movie versions. So we're actually going to get started with what I consider like the quintessential Halloween movie, like have to watch it on Halloween or the day before because that's the day it takes place in the movie every single year. And that is 1994's The Crow. This was directed by Alex Proyas. So this is the movie where Brandon Lee was famously killed while on set. The gun that was used in the scene was supposed to have blanks, but unfortunately it had real bullets. And so when they shot the gun, it actually killed him. And I just can't imagine the trauma of going through something like that. But because he died during filming, they kind of had to get creative with how they finished the movie. There are some kind of scenes where they reuse his image, and obviously stunt doubles and stuff kind of have to take his place, and so you don't see his face as much. But the history behind that is all really interesting, but it's also really, really sad. And there's been talks for years and years about remaking The Crow, and I'm glad they've all failed because I feel like this movie is just a homage to Brandon Lee, and I feel like remaking that is kind of stomping on that a bit. So I'd rather just have this classic and love it as it is. So this story is all about All Hallows Eve. It takes place in Detroit, where the day before Halloween, there are always fires that are set by people and stuff like that. It has to do with a revenge plot. It has supernatural aspects to it. It has music by The Cure in it. And it also has the character Eric Draven, his famous face makeup in it. He is such a recognizable character, and I just truly love this movie. Next is a movie I actually just recently saw, but it is 100% Halloween vibes, and it is just what I needed for this time of year, and that is Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. This came out in 2018 and is directed by Jean Baumschik. So the story here is nothing new. It's essentially a group of YouTubers go to a haunted asylum and chaos ensues, stuff happens, all of that, seen it before kind of thing. So the story is same old. However, the scares in this are fantastic, and my husband's been traumatizing me by mentioning them over and over again. And one thing that I found really interesting with this movie is my husband and I found different things the scariest. There's a scene that involves hands, and for him, that was the scariest, and it is extremely well done. But there was a different scene for me that was just traumatizing, and I will probably remember it for the rest of my life. It's very reminiscent of the scene in Caveat, if you've seen that and heard about me talk about that in a previous video. But I will never forget this movie. It is a slow burn, so if you're a fan of those, I would definitely recommend this. And you really get to see the buildup of the terror and kind of the asylum come alive, and when stuff starts happening, it's just 100% nonstop. And the scenes, the scares, it's nothing quick. Those scenes are long. I was so shocked by it, and it just kept going and going. So for the last 20 minutes of this movie, I'm literally peeking between my fingers, oh my god. And that's exactly what I want in a horror movie, especially a haunted asylum type movie. Like, this is what I love. I love it where I'm like so scared that I just want to hide. Like, that's just so fun. And it's been a long time since I've watched a movie like that. So 100% recommend this to just any fan of horror, but especially if you like the haunted asylum trope, if you like a good slow burn, and if you love just straight up scares. Next is a guilty pleasure movie for me, and that is 1999's The Haunting. This is directed by Jan Dubont, who also directed Twister, by the way, which is another good movie. So this is one that is based on The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. However, it is nothing like the book. It pretty much just borrowed the names and that's it. The plot is completely different. The cast in this is pretty amazing. It has Lily Taylor, Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Owen Wilson, so tons of recognizable faces in this. It has horrible ratings, however, but this was one of the first horror movies I saw as a kid. It came out in 1999. I was 8 at the time, so I think that's why it just has such a huge place in my heart, and that's also the case for the next movie I'll talk about. But what this movie I think does well is just the isolationist feel and the like, you're alone, no one believes you, it's in your head kind of thing. And also the scenes with some of the ghosts are just so well done in my opinion, and just the emotion behind them and everything is probably my favorite part of the movie. Next is the first horror movie I ever saw as a kid, and that is 1999's Sleepy Hollow by Tim Burton. So this stars Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci, but also has a ton of other familiar faces in it. Every time I watch it, I'm always just like, Jesus, I forgot who was all in this. But Sleepy Hollow, Halloween, like, come on, it doesn't get any more Halloween-y than that. I've always been fascinated by The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I remember seeing like the Disney short of it. My grandma even used to call me like Ichabod Crane when I was a kid. And I don't know, it's just something where I've always known the story. And I don't even remember where I first heard it. But this movie in particular, I love the portrayal of the Headless Horseman, and it's Christopher Walken, so I mean, that's another plus. But it takes the story in a different direction than just the normal stereotypical one, and I think that's another reason why I love it. But just the aesthetic of it, very gothic, very dark, obviously, and the costumes and everything, ooh, love that. If you like period dramas, but without most of the drama and replace it with horror, then you'll like this one. Next is 2015's Hell House LLC. This was directed by Stephen Cognetti. This is a found footage movie, and it is perfect for Halloween because it's about a group of people renovating an old hotel into a Halloween attraction. And I love the found footage aspect of this one because essentially they have like security cameras all over this haunted house attraction because obviously the public is going to be there. And so a lot of it, the footage comes from that, and I love that. And a lot of the scares in here are where we as the viewer know more of what's happening than the characters in the movie because they are questioning their sanity. They're like, wait, did that thing just move? And we're like, oh, hell yeah, that thing just moved. And that's one of the aspects I really love about this movie. It's the first of a trilogy, and we watched the trilogy, and they essentially just get worse. But I really enjoyed this first one, and I think if you're looking for this kind of type of found footage movie, definitely watch this one, even if you don't watch the rest. Next is 1998's Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. This was actually directed by 3 different people, so I'm going to read it off of my tablet. Jim Stenstrom, Hiroshi Aoyama, and Kazumi Fukushima. So this is a childhood classic, like obviously. I remember just it actually scaring me as a child, and then I rewatched it last year actually, and I'm just like, damn, this actually holds up. But being in France and hearing the French accent of some of the characters is just like, oh, okay, that didn't age too well. But Everything else does, I promise. It's a good movie and definitely like a great one to watch with the family this year. Scooby-Doo is always just a fun time. The music in this is also amazing, and it is surprisingly like grotesque with some of the monsters, and what's happening is very dark. So it has pretty much something for everyone, because for the adults that can understand the things that are happening better, it's like, whoa. And for children, it's Scooby-Doo. Next is 2014's As Above, So Below. This was directed by John instead of John. John Eric Dowdle. This is another found footage, and oh man, this movie kind of traumatized me because it takes place, a majority of it, in the catacombs of Paris, which I've been before, and I live in Paris and everything, and that's why I wanted to watch it. However, I recognized like the places they go around before they go in the catacombs and everything. I pretty much recognized where they were going and stuff, and the ending, it literally ends like right down the street of where I lived at the time, and seeing that was like, oh my god. Because I was just like, holy crap, there's like demonic rituals taking place under my freaking apartment. Like, I know it's stupid, but you see the movie and you recognize all the places and you're just like, oh my god, like some stuff could actually be happening under there. And yeah, it's silly, but it scared me. But essentially this is like a team of people going into the catacombs to find something. I don't even remember. I think the main character's dad was like, not an archaeologist. Jesus, I am having a really hard time with my brain today. And I believe she kind of follows in his footsteps, so she's looking for something in particular, and they get a lot more than they bargained for. And if you're a fan of horror where it kind of targets each character individually, like with their own horror, then I would definitely recommend this one, because that is 100% what this does. And it also is claustrophobic horror. It has to do in the catacombs, really tight spaces, some inescapable like feelings and moments and stuff. So if that's right up your alley, definitely watch this one. And lastly, I'm going to talk about 1989's Pet Sematary. This was directed by Mary Lambert, and for me, this is a classic movie. I really didn't care for the remake. I think it was from 2019, maybe? But they redid it, and not really a fan. I love this original so much better. And I mean, like, Herman Munster's in it, so have to love that. So I saw the movie before I read the book, and really, I love both. I think both are fantastic. I mean, it's from 1989, so like effects and stuff like that aren't going to be the greatest, but I just feel like it's still so well done, and the way it builds the story and the pacing of it and everything, it's just perfect. Like, it's a great classic movie, great Halloween movie, perfect for some scares. Like, it's not exactly scary. Like, the concept of it is scarier than the imagery of this movie, but it's just such a great Halloween flick that it's one that I will rewatch over and over and over again. Some honorable mentions are Hocus Pocus, Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, The Exorcist, of course, Halloween Town, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So these are all ones that are just really common Halloween movies that I just didn't really feel like I needed to talk about at all. But this time of year is just so great for movies, and obviously particularly horror, and since that's my favorite genre, I just love talking about them, talking about horror in general, and just sharing movie recommendations. So these are a few that I recommend watching this season, and I will definitely probably be rewatching a few of these, but I'm also going to try and catch up on a lot that I need to watch still. So as always, thank you for hanging out with me, and until next time, stay spooky, and bonne journée, and au revoir.